Johannesburg Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda has responded to criticism by Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu. It's over several meetings missed as Johannesburg residents really are battling with dry taps. The mayor insists that his time is better spent implementing rather than discussing plans in boardrooms. We're joined by the University of Free State political and governance specialist, Dr Harlan Cloete. Dr Cloete, what a strange thing to be happening right now. We're literally sitting on a crisis in Gauteng, affecting 3 of our biggest municipalities, at the very least, metropolitan municipalities, I must add, and yet the debate seems to be about whether or not the Johannesburg mayor can attend important meetings. What do you make of what's going on?
Good evening to you, Kathy, and good evening to all the viewers. You know, there's an African proverb that says when elephants fight, then it's the grass that gets hurt. Maybe I must explain our governance system. We have 3 spheres of government, and we've got intergovernmental relations. And so the theory says that these 3 spheres work together to achieve the objectives of the developmental state. In other words, national must work with province, and province work with the local to ensure that we get delivery. It doesn't hold good in terms of the confidence that people have, and so really, you know, it is just bad for service delivery when egos get into the way of purpose.
Of course, residents are expecting as much of a collaborative response as possible, because ultimately, if there's no Johannesburg, if there's no water rather in Johannesburg, and that water needs to come from elsewhere, and that facilitation needs to take place and needs to happen under the auspices of the national department, then that's what needs to happen, right?
But that is exactly that, you know, that no sphere can do all of it on its own. And so you have to have the institutional and legislative framework is there for what we call cooperative governance. And so it is expected. People are expecting that these spheres to work together. Now, if you look at the National Development Plan, the review that was released last week, it speaks exactly to this issue that there's a lack of coordinated planning, that we are working in a fragmented way and not achieving, pooling our resources and using the intel and the knowledge systems of the province and of local to make sure that we deliver the best to our local citizens. Something like this, you know, a public spat like this does not hold good for the electorate, because it sends a very clear message to the electorate that we don't care. It's our egos are more important than delivery and the innovative solutions that we can bring to the table. And so I agree with you, it's bad for governance, it's bad for democracy, it's bad for service delivery.
It really seems to be the last thing that, you know, residents should be having to deal with. And what we should be reporting is the solutions that, you know, officials have been able to come up with in these meetings. That being said, do you get a sense that, you know, there is a workable plan? Because that's part of where the criticism stems from. The feedback, at least given by the Water and Sanitation Minister, was that he was not impressed with the plans given by the municipalities in Gauteng, in particular on how they're going to mitigate this water shortage and the backup plans that they had put in place.
We have, you know, like I said, we have sufficient oversight. The municipality is not an entity on its own. It has provincial oversight as well. You know, we've got from the bottom up, we've got the IDP, the Integrated Development Plan, and there's supposed to be provincial oversight and checks and balances. And then you have the national department. And so the planning deficit clearly has been pointed out. We are not working, like I said, and that is what has been identified in a coordinated way. It's fragmented implementation. So we've got great policies, but it's at the implementation level phase that things fall apart. Now, a lot has been invested in municipalities in terms of building capacity of individuals, but in many of these municipalities have become dysfunctional, where processes, systems, planning, you know, planning is more difficult than implementation. And so it clearly points out in a lack of coordinated planning between, on the side of local government in this case, and the communications between these spheres of government. So that said, I also want to say that I don't want to make this out that, government is as easy as switching on a light. It's a complex system with contradictions, with egos, there are various variables and factors that impact on the ability of local government to deliver. Clearly, in this case, the minister and the technocrats, together with the city of Johannesburg, must come up with a solution. It is not good to have these public spats, especially in next year's election that is looming. It doesn't instill confidence in the voter because the voter says, why must I vote if this is how you carry on? You're not interested in me. You're only interested in feeding your own egos instead of getting on with the job of delivering services together with residents in an innovative way. That is what South Africans desire. South Africans want leadership, and that is what the National Development Plan speaks as well. If we're going to get out of the mess that we are in, and I think the admittance last week of that National Planning Review is an admittance from government that we have failed to implement instead of focusing on governance, our state or the structures become corrupt. There are so many other vested interests in the institution which make it virtually almost impossible for municipalities to function. The Deputy President yesterday reported that 66 municipalities in this country are considered dysfunctional. And so municipalities really is the sphere of government where people experience the love or the indifference of the state, and it needs to be capable. If we talk about a capable state, it talks about capability at the local government sphere.
All right, University of Free State, excuse me, a political and governance specialist, Dr. Cloete.